There are 3 stories. And when we put these stories together, they form a riddle or an enigma. And this riddle or enigma can only be resolved when the 3 levels of mind are engaged. Those 3 levels of mind are existence, knowledge and bliss, called Satchitananda. This is so because the 3 levels have a causation of movement. A man rushed into a certain town where it so happened that Mullah Nasruddin was the local judge. And when the man came before Mullah Nasruddin, he said, "I demand justice. Just outside of town, I've been robbed. The robber took my socks, my shoes, my cloak, my satchel, my turban." Mullah Nasruddin looked at him and said, "Well, I'm sorry. I cannot have any jurisdiction over your case." And the man was affronted. He said, "Why?" "Well," said Mullah Nasruddin, "I see that you're still wearing your underpants." The man said, "Well, yes." And he said, Mullah Nasruddin responded, "Well, the robber could not have come from our town because we do things properly here." In the land of the rising sun, in the time when the samurais ruled, there was a great shogun. And this shogun decided to have a reception to which he invited all his greatest swordsmen of the land. But it so happened that the shogun had been given as a gift from the Raja of India a small monkey. And he loved this monkey. He allowed it free reign of the palace. But during the reception, the shogun had a thought. He thought he would test his swordsmen, these great lords and samurais who were fearless on the battlefield and had made his realm huge. So the test that he gave his samurai lords was to catch his monkey. Well, the swordsman chased this little creature all over the place. It ran here and there, and just when the samurai swordsman was about to catch him, the monkey would dash behind the shogun's throne or up under his cloak and be out of reach of the samurais. The shogun was getting very frustrated to think that all of these lords who were fearless on the battle, they could not even catch a small monkey and subdue it. But as it happened, the Zen master Hakuin had been invited to this reception, and in frustration, when the swordsmen were unsuccessful, the shogun called over the Zen master and said, "Well, look at all of these helpless lords. Perhaps you can demonstrate to us how this monkey is subdued." And with that, the master Hakuin took his staff, standing it in front of him. The monkey was there looking warily at him. Master Hakuin raised his staff, and the monkey went down into subservient position, totally and absolutely. Shogun said to Master Hakuin, "How did you do that?" Master Hakuin replied, "Because the monkey knew that I was not afraid of striking you." Then there were two great kingdoms. One was ruled over by a sultan, Turkestan, and the other was ruled over by a great emperor, Hindustan. Now, the Turkestan monarch coveted the kingdom of Hindustan. He was acquisitive. He liked to increase his kingdom. But he knew that this monarch of Hindustan had an advisor who was so powerful that he was able to even direct the armies when they were in conflict. So the monarch of Turkestan was in fear, afraid of invading this kingdom. But as it happened, it so came to the ears of the monarch of Turkestan that this advisor to the monarch of Hindustan had been beheaded because he had had a disagreement with the monarch. So, of course, this allowed the monarch of Turkestan to think this was his chance to acquire the kingdom of Hindustan. So the monarch of Turkestan, who had a dream, he always dreamt of having a huge palace out in the desert. But of course one knows that when one builds a palace on sand, it will inevitably be destroyed, sink into the sand or blown away. So this monarch of Turkestan sent a letter to the monarch of Hindustan saying, "I wish to have a palace in the sky. If you cannot fulfill my wish, I will invade your country and acquire it." Now, when this was received by the monarch of Hindustan, he was very afraid. He knew the might of the monarch of Turkestan. He had a vast army. What was he to do? He was so regretful because he realized that in beheading his advisor, he no longer had counsel to turn to, because in seeking the advice of all the other pundits, knowledgeable people of his kingdom, no one had the answer. But then this came to the ears of the one who had been told to execute the advisor. Because in fact, because the advisor had saved this man's life, when it came to the time that he was to behead because of the debt that he had, he saved the advisor's life. So the executioner went to the monarch and said, "Please, I deserve to lose my life." "Why?" he was asked. "Because I did not obey you. Your advisor still lives." Of course, the monarch of Hindustan was overjoyed. "Bring him to me," he said. So the advisor was brought, and there was great rejoicing between them, the monarch embracing his advisor, and then presenting to him the dilemma in which they were placed. The advisor said, "Sire, give me 40 days, which was, of course, granted to him. So the advisor went off, and he immediately got to work. He called for hunters to acquire 2 eagles. When the eagles were brought, the advisor tied ropes to their legs, and then he had 2 young boys brought to him, and he taught the boys to climb onto the backs of the eagles, and then he would let the eagles free. The ropes were tied to the eagles' feet, and so the young boys very quickly learned to be comfortable as the eagles soared up to a certain point where the rope was extended. And then they were ready. The advisor, the 2 eagles, and the 2 boys went to the great land of Turkestan, and there they were presented to the monarch. The advisor immediately said, "We're ready. We're ready to build your castle in the air. But first you must give us workers, mortar, stones, and they must be taken to the location in the desert." This was readily done, and so, of course, the monarch, anxious to see what was going on, went out to the desert, where the advisor to the monarch of Hindustan set the ropes steadily, and the young boys, climbing on the eagles, were released to fly up to the length of the ropes. When the boys were aloft, as they were instructed to do, they called out, "We're ready, send up the workmen and the mortar and the stones." But of course, the monarch of Turkestan said, how can my workers take? And then, of course, it was realized that the advisor had outsmarted him, because he realized there was no way that a castle could be built in the air. It goes without saying that the monarch of Turkestan seceded and allowed the advisor with his little entourage to return to the kingdom of Hindustan with the message that he would no longer covet the kingdom, nor would he attempt again to make any invasion nor demands of his realm. A riddle that can only be resolved when our three levels of mind, existence, cause and effect, knowledge, the vast, endless, eternal space of spirit, and Ananda, bliss, interrelatedness, oneness, compassion, pity, are all together. There is an answer to this riddle. Where is it that all three abide? Where is it that existence, knowledge, and bliss reside?